spent 15 years fixing elevators for strangers, while my own marriage was falling apart right under my roof. She thought I was just a dumb mechanic who wouldn't notice. The alarm screamed at 5:45 a.m., same as every weekday for the past 15 years. I rolled out of bed, feet hitting the cold hardwood floor of our bedroom. Heather didn't stir. She never did anymore. Used to be she'd mumble something sweet, maybe pull me back for a quick kiss. Now she just buried her face deeper in the pillow, blonde hair fanned across the Egyptian cotton sheets she'd insisted we buy last Christmas. I padded downstairs in my boxers and undershirt, the house settling around me with familiar creaks. The coffee maker was already programmed, one thing I could count on. While it gurgled to life, I stared out the kitchen window at the pre-dawn darkness. Streetlights cast yellow pools on the asphalt, and somewhere a garbage truck rumbled in the distance. "Another day, another dollar," I muttered, pouring coffee into my thermos. The liquid was black as motor oil and twice as necessary. I'd been saying that phrase since my first job at 16, working construction with my old man. Some habits die hard. By 6:47 a.m., I was standing in the empty elevator shaft of Meridian Tower, 47 floors of glass and steel reaching toward the gray October sky. My work boots echoed in the concrete chamber as I checked my safety harness. Once, twice, then a third time because that's what keeps you alive in this business. The mechanical hum of cables and counterweights surrounded me like an old friend's conversation. "Morning, Joe," Frank called from the lobby level. He was the facility manager, a decent guy who actually knew the difference between a traction motor and a door operator. "Got 3 cars acting up on floors 12 through 15. "I'll start there," I called back, my voice bouncing off the shaft walls. The morning light filtered through the building's glass facade, casting geometric shadows across the pristine marble lobby below. Everything felt normal, predictable, safe. The way I liked it. I've been servicing elevators for Apex Elevator Services since Emma was born. Steady work, good benefits, union protection. Not glamorous, but it paid the bills and then some. Most people don't think about elevators until they break down, but I see the beauty in the engineering. Thousands of pounds of steel and cable working in perfect harmony, moving people safely between floors dozens of times a day. It's all about precision, maintenance, and respecting the load limits. The breakfast table smelled like vanilla pancakes and brewing coffee when I got home at 4:30 sharp. Emma was already there in her school uniform, chattering about her 7th grade science project while stabbing at her stack of pancakes. "Dad, can you help me with the pulley system?" she asked, syrup dripping from her fork. "Mrs. Peterson says we need to demonstrate mechanical advantage, and I thought maybe you could show me how elevator pulleys work." "Sure thing, kiddo." I ruffled her dark hair. She got that from me, not her mother's blonde. "We'll set something up in the garage this weekend." Heather sat across from us, scrolling through her phone with that distant look she'd worn lately. Her coffee was growing cold, untouched, while she tapped and swiped with manicured nails. Ping! Another text notification. "Work stuff," she said without looking up, even though nobody had asked. I studied her face in the morning light streaming through our kitchen window. When had those lines appeared around her eyes? When had she stopped looking at me during breakfast? We used to talk about our days, make plans for weekends. Now it felt like we were 3 strangers sharing a meal. "What kind of work stuff?" I asked, cutting into my own pancakes. "Just, PTA things. Planning the fall fundraiser." Emma perked up. "Are you going to do another bake sale? Tommy's mom made those chocolate chip cookies last time that were amazing." "Maybe, honey." Heather's fingers kept moving across her screen. "We're exploring different options." Ping, ping. The kitchen suddenly felt smaller, the overhead light too bright, casting harsh shadows across my wife's face as she finally looked up from her phone. That evening, after Emma was in bed, I in the garage workshop, staring at our home router's admin dashboard on my laptop. The LED lights blinked steadily on the black box mounted on the workbench, our digital lifeline to the outside world. The data usage logs showed something that made my technical mind automatically shift into troubleshooting mode. Unusual spikes during my work hours. 847 megabytes yesterday alone between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. Consistent high usage every weekday when the house should be quiet, just Heather home alone. Probably just software updates, I told myself, but my finger hovered over the detailed logs anyway. The garage felt colder than usual, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead like angry wasps. My breath came out in small puffs. October in Massachusetts meant the workshop would be freezing soon. I clicked through to the device breakdown. Heather's phone was accounting for most of the traffic. Video streaming, maybe? But she always claimed she barely used the internet during the day. Said she was too busy with housework and errands. The numbers don't lie. In my business, you learn that mechanical systems tell you the truth even when people don't. A cable frays at a predictable rate. A motor bearing wears down according to load and time. Data packets flow according to usage patterns. I closed the laptop and walked back into the house, the numbers still spinning in my head like an elevator car stuck between floors. The next morning at Meridian Tower, I was checking my work orders when something caught my eye on the building directory in the lobby. 47th floor, Suite 4712. Valdez Properties, LLC. Marcus Valdez, commercial real estate developer. Marcus. I'd heard that name recently but couldn't place it. My clipboard listed 3 elevator inspections for this building today, all routine maintenance on the express cars that served the upper floors. The hallway on 47 smelled like expensive cologne and fresh paint, a world away from my blue-collar reality. Through the glass office doors, I glimpsed men in $1,000 suits making deals I'd never understand. One of them was tall, dark-haired, probably my age but softer around the edges. The kind of guy who'd never had grease under his fingernails or worried about making rent. Just keep your head down and do the work, I reminded myself. But that name kept nagging at me like a loose cable in an elevator shaft. That evening, Heather's phone buzzed during dinner, and she glanced at it with a quick smile before setting it face down on the table. "Who was that?" Emma asked innocently, twirling spaghetti around her fork. "Marcus from the PTA," Heather explained, her cheeks flushing slightly. "He's helping coordinate the fundraiser." My fork paused halfway to my mouth. Marcus, the same name from the building directory. "I thought the PTA president was Linda Morrison," Emma said. "He's new, honey, volunteering for the fundraiser committee." The dining room suddenly felt smaller, the overhead light casting harsh shadows across my wife's face. 15 years of marriage, and I was starting to recognize the signs of something breaking down. That night, I sat in my workshop until almost midnight, the laptop screen burning my eyes as I scrolled through months of router data. The numbers painted a picture clearer than any photograph. Video calls to m.valdez_real estate, dozens of them, each lasting 45 minutes to 2 hours. The timestamps showed a pattern that made my stomach clench. Every Tuesday and Thursday, 10 a.m. to noon, when Emma was at school and I was crawling around elevator shafts. My coffee had gone cold hours ago, tasting like metal and disappointment. The garage workshop felt like a tomb, fluorescent lights humming their mechanical lullaby while my world crumbled in neat spreadsheet rows. Each entry was a small betrayal, time-stamped and logged with digital precision. "There has to be an explanation," I whispered to the empty air, but even as I said it, I knew I was lying to myself. In my line of work, you learn to trust the data. Systems don't lie. People do. I clicked through to the messaging logs. Encrypted apps I'd never heard of. WhatsApp, Signal, something called Telegram. 847 messages exchanged over the past 6 months. The file sizes suggested photos, maybe videos. My hands shook as I tried to access the encrypted content, but it was locked tighter than a bank vault. The workshop bench became my makeshift command center, laptop surrounded by printed screenshots and highlighted timestamps. I'd built this space to fix things: elevator motors, control panels, the mechanical problems that had logical solutions. Now I was using it to document the breakdown of my marriage, and no amount of technical skill could repair what I was uncovering. The next morning felt different, hyper-aware of every sound, every glance. Heather hummed while making Emma's lunch, the same tune she'd hummed for years, but now it scraped against my nerves like fingernails on metal. "I might work late tonight," she mentioned casually, not meeting my eyes while she spread peanut butter on bread.
"Client meeting." "What kind of client meeting?" I asked, trying to keep my voice level.
"Oh, boring real estate stuff. Property showings." She waved her hand dismissively, but I caught the slight tremor in her fingers. Emma bounced around the kitchen, oblivious to the tension crackling between her parents like static electricity. "Dad, can you help me with my science project tonight?" "Sure, sweetheart," I said, ruffling her hair while watching Heather's reflection in the kitchen window. "What's it about?" "Structural engineering. We have to build a bridge that can hold 20 pounds. The irony wasn't lost on me. Everything in my life was about load-bearing capacity, and I was just starting to understand how much weight my marriage had been carrying. My work clothes felt heavier that day, my tool belt a familiar weight against my hip. The normalcy felt like a performance we were all pretending to believe. I kissed Heather goodbye like I had 1,000 times before, but her lips felt cold against mine. During my lunch break, I standing outside Marcus Valdez's office door, reading the nameplate twice. Valdez Properties LLC, Commercial Real Estate Development. Through the frosted glass, I could see a tall figure gesturing animatedly on a phone call. My heart pounded against my ribs like a trapped bird trying to break free. The hallway smelled like leather and success, everything I wasn't. Expensive artwork lined the walls, abstract paintings that probably cost more than I made in a year. A secretary with perfect makeup glanced at my work uniform with polite confusion. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice carrying that practiced corporate sweetness. "Wrong floor," I mumbled, backing toward the elevator, my face burning with embarrassment and something darker. The elevator car felt like a cage as it descended, carrying me back to my world of grease and cables and honest work. That evening, I dove deeper into the router logs. The encrypted messaging was just the surface. Video calls, file transfers, location sharing. It was all there, mapped out in digital breadcrumbs that led to one inescapable conclusion. My technical training kicked in, the same methodical approach I used to diagnose elevator problems. Every system has a pattern. Every malfunction leaves traces, and this malfunction had been running for months. The garage felt like a bunker, fluorescent lights humming overhead while I built my case like a mathematical proof. Each data point confirmed my worst fears, but I needed more than suspicion. In my business, you don't shut down an elevator based on a hunch. You gather evidence, document everything, build an airtight case. By Thursday, I was watching the clock like a man waiting for execution. 10 a.m. came and went. At 10:15, I checked the router logs on my phone from inside an elevator car on the 32nd floor of Meridian Tower. Active video call session. Started 10:12 a.m. Still running. I finished my inspection in record time and drove home with a migraine that felt like someone was driving railroad spikes through my skull. Heather's car wasn't in the driveway. Emma was at soccer practice until 6 p.m. The house felt different the moment I walked in. Too warm, air heavy with unfamiliar cologne that definitely wasn't mine. A wine glass sat in the sink, lipstick stain on the rim. Dark red, the expensive kind Heather only wore for special occasions. But there had been 2 glasses. The second one was already in the dishwasher. My hands trembled as I checked the router logs on my phone again. Video call session still active, timestamp showing 2:47 p.m. They weren't just talking. The living room couch cushions were askew, and I noticed things I'd trained myself not to see over the past few months. A throw pillow on the floor, the coffee table pushed slightly out of alignment, the scent of that cologne hanging in the air like evidence. I sank into my recliner, the leather creaking under my weight, and stared at the couch where my wife had been entertaining another man in our home. The router logs showed the truth in cold, digital clarity. The affair wasn't just emotional anymore. They'd been meeting here, in the house I'd worked overtime to pay for, while I was crawling through elevator shafts to keep food on our table. The worst part wasn't the betrayal. It was realizing I'd become so predictable, so invisible in my own life, that she felt safe enough to bring him here. I sat in my work truck outside the Riverside Commons development, laptop balanced on my steering wheel like some kind of mobile command center. 11 p.m. on a Tuesday, and here I was, a 43-year-old elevator mechanic turned digital detective. The skeletal concrete frame loomed against the December sky like exposed ribs, each floor a reminder of things half-built, half-destroyed. The router logs glowed on my screen, numbers that told a story I didn't want to read. But I trained myself to read the truth in data, in patterns that most people missed. October 15th, 2:30 p.m., I muttered, tracing my finger down the timestamp column. Heather's phone connects to Meridian Tower Wi-Fi. I pulled up my maintenance log on another tab. Same day, same time. I'd serviced the elevator on floor 12. My hand stopped moving across the keyboard as the realization hit like a dropped wrench to the gut. They weren't meeting at some random hotel or coffee shop. They were meeting while I worked 3 floors below them. While I crawled through elevator shafts and checked safety cables, my wife was upstairs planning our destruction. My phone buzzed. Dennis Murphy's name lit up the screen. "Joe, where the hell are you? It's almost midnight." "Working," I said, stepping out of the truck. The December wind cut through my Carhartt jacket like a blade. "You're obsessing, man. Come have a beer. Tommy's here. We're talking about the union vote next week." I kicked a piece of rebar lying near the construction entrance. The metallic clang echoed through the empty space, bouncing off concrete walls that would never be finished on time. Everything in construction ran behind schedule. Everything except betrayal, apparently. "I can't stop, Dennis. Every time I think I know how deep this goes." I trailed off, walking into the main floor of the building. Concrete dust hung in the air, making everything taste like grit and broken promises. "Joe, listen to me. You're gonna drive yourself crazy with this computer stuff." She was texting him while I was fixing the elevator that takes him to his office. My voice cracked on the last word. While I was working to pay for the phone she used to betray me. Dennis went quiet for a moment. "Jesus, Joe. I'm sorry, man, but you gotta..." "I gotta what? Pretend it didn't happen? Act like 20 years of marriage means nothing?" "No, but you gotta think about Emma, about what comes next." I ended the call and set up my makeshift command center on a stack of lumber. The work lights cast harsh shadows through the unfinished space as I used my phone's hotspot to access our shared cloud storage. Digital archaeology, digging through the remains of my marriage. Heather's backed-up photos loaded slowly on the construction site's spotty connection. Most looked innocent enough. Emma at her school science fair, family dinners where we all smiled like we meant it. But then I found a folder I'd never seen before. Future plans. My cursor hovered over it for a full minute. Some discoveries you can't take back, some doors you can't close once you've opened them. The wind whistled through the gaps in the concrete walls, and I clicked. Screenshots of real estate listings filled my screen. Luxury condos downtown, the kind with granite countertops and city views that cost more than I made in 3 years. All saved between October and November, all while she was still sleeping next to me every night, asking about my day like she gave a damn. One listing made me stop breathing. A penthouse with floor-to-ceiling windows and a private balcony. The description read, "Perfect for the discerning couple ready to start their new life together." Someone had added a heart emoji to the saved image. I scrolled deeper into the folder, my phone screen reflecting the harsh work lights like a mirror, showing me truths I didn't want to see. Then I found the photo that made my world tilt on its axis. Heather and Marcus at a furniture showroom, both pointing at a king-size bed. Her face was lit up with the kind of joy I hadn't seen in years. The timestamp read, November 8th. The same day she told me she had a doctor's appointment. "We should get the California King," read her text to Marcus underneath the photo.
More room for us. I screenshot everything, my hands moving with the mechanical precision I'd learned from 25 years of working with my tools. The irony wasn't lost on me. Here I was, building a case in a building that Marcus would probably profit from when his development company finished it. But the worst discovery was still coming. I found a shared Pinterest board between them, titled Our New Beginning. Kitchen designs with marble islands that cost more than my truck. Vacation destinations, Tuscany, the Maldives, places I'd never be able to afford. And then, at the bottom of the board, a collection of wedding rings. Wedding rings. The construction site's silence amplified every heartbeat, every shallow breath as I scrolled through months of careful planning. They hadn't just fallen into an affair. They'd been systematically building a life together while dismantling mine, board by board, pin by pin. A text from Marcus, dated 3 weeks ago, made my vision blur. "Found a buyer for the boat. Can list it after New Year's. Should get enough to cover the down payment on the condo." My boat. The 2019 Sea Ray I'd saved 3 years to buy, working double shifts and skipping meals. They weren't just planning to leave me. They were planning to sell my assets to fund their escape. The cold December air suddenly felt suffocating in the unfinished space. I called Patricia Kowalski, my voice echoing off bare concrete walls like a confession in an empty church. "They're planning to sell our boat," I told the property law attorney without preamble. "Can they do that legally?" "Joe?" Her voice was sharp with concern. "Where are you? It sounds like you're in a tunnel." "Construction site. Can they sell it?" "If both names are on the title, either party can initiate a sale. But Joe, there's something else we need to discuss about your house. Something I discovered when I ran the property records." The way she said it made me sit down hard on a stack of drywall. Through the unfinished windows, the city lights blurred like tears I refused to shed. "What about the house, Patricia? What about the house, Patricia?" Her pause stretched long enough that I checked if the call had dropped. The construction site's ambient noise, distant traffic, wind through the steel framework, filled the silence like static. "Joe, someone refinanced your house 6 months ago, took out $120,000 in equity." My work-worn hands gripped the phone tighter. The stack of drywall beneath me suddenly felt unsteady, like everything solid in my world was shifting. "That's impossible. I never signed anything." "I'm looking at the documents right now," Patricia said, her voice careful and measured. "Your signature is here, but... Joe, it doesn't look right to me. 6 months ago, exactly when I first suspected something was wrong. When Heather started working late, when the cologne appeared, when our conversations became scripts instead of real talk. She wasn't just cheating, she was stealing." "Fax me those documents," I said, standing up so fast the blood rushed from my head. "Right now." "Joe, it's almost midnight. Where are you going to get a fax at this hour?" 24-hour FedEx on Industrial Boulevard. How long will it take?" 10 minutes. But Joe..." I was already walking toward the exit, my boots echoing off concrete. "Patricia, if that signature is forged, this isn't just adultery anymore." The drive to FedEx took 8 minutes of red lights and empty streets. My mind raced faster than my truck's engine, calculating and recalculating. $120,000. That was Emma's college fund, our retirement safety net. The money I'd earned crawling through elevator shafts and working double shifts when other guys went home to beer and television. The fluorescent lights inside FedEx felt harsh after hours in the dark construction site. A tired clerk looked up from restocking paper. "I need to use the fax machine," I said. "Sure thing. Number's on the side." I called Patricia back. "Ready when you are." The machine hummed and clicked, spitting out page after page of mortgage documents. My hands shook slightly as I gathered them, the paper still warm from the printer. 25 years of marriage, 15 years in this house, and it all came down to these documents under fluorescent lights at midnight. Back in my truck, I spread the papers across my dashboard and turned on the dome light. The signature on the refinancing application stared back at me. My name, but not my handwriting. The J in Joe looped wrong, too round, like someone had practiced it but couldn't quite get the muscle memory right. I pulled out my work orders for comparison, the ones I signed every day with mechanical precision. The difference was obvious once you knew to look. My real signature was angular, efficient, the signature of a man who'd signed thousands of safety reports and equipment logs. This forgery was softer, more feminine, like someone had tried to copy my handwriting but couldn't hide their own. "Son of a bitch," I whispered to my empty truck. The dashboard clock read 12:47 a.m. Heather was probably asleep in our bed, dreaming about her new life with Marcus while lying on sheets bought with stolen money. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was sitting in a parking lot at midnight, discovering my wife was a felon, while she slept peacefully in the house she'd robbed. I drove back to the construction site because I needed the space to think, needed the honest emptiness of unfinished walls and exposed steel. The building's work lights were still on, casting harsh shadows that made everything look like a crime scene. I spread the documents across a makeshift table of plywood and sawhorses, photographing each page with methodical precision. My elevator mechanic training kicked in. Safety protocols, documentation, evidence chains. I knew how to build a case that wouldn't fall apart under scrutiny. Each click of my camera shutter sounded like a nail in Heather's coffin. The bank statements showed the money had been transferred to an account I'd never seen before. The loan application listed my income accurately, but inflated our assets, claiming we owned investment property we'd never purchased. "You wanted to play games," I muttered, uploading the files to a secure cloud account. "Let's see how you like my rules." The December wind cut through the unfinished building, carrying away my words but not my resolve. I pulled up the bank's online portal on my phone, checking our joint accounts with new eyes. Sure enough, there were transfers I'd never authorized, small amounts that wouldn't trigger alerts but added up over months. My phone buzzed with a text from Dennis. "You still up? Saw your truck at the site." 5 minutes later, his headlights swept across the construction zone. Dennis Murphy climbed out of his beat-up Silverado, tool belt still around his waist from whatever emergency call had kept him working this late. "Jesus, Joe, you look like hell." I didn't look up from the bank statements I was cross-referencing. "They stole $120,000, Dennis. Forged my signature and stole it." He sat down hard on a stack of lumber, processing this information. The work lights cast deep shadows under his eyes, making him look older than his 43 years. That's a felony, man." I finally met his eyes, and something in my expression made him lean back slightly. "Yeah, it is." Dennis had known me since we were apprentices together, back when we thought mastering elevator systems was the hardest thing we'd ever have to learn. He'd seen me angry before, at incompetent contractors, at safety violations that could kill someone. But this was different. This was cold. "What are you going to do?" "What any good mechanic does when he finds a system failure," I said, turning back to the documents. "I'm going to fix it." The construction site's silence stretched between us. Somewhere in the distance, a train whistle echoed off the empty buildings, lonely and final. Dennis stayed another hour, helping me organize the evidence into neat piles, but we both knew this was something I had to handle alone. After he left, I stood at the building's edge, looking out at the city where Heather and Marcus thought they were safe. The lights below looked like a circuit board, all connected, all following predictable patterns. My phone buzzed with a text from her. "Working late again? You've been so distant lately." The audacity made me laugh, a sound that echoed strangely in the empty space. She was asking about distance while planning their future with stolen money. I typed back, "Just thinking about our future." It wasn't a lie. I was thinking about their future, specifically how I was going to destroy it. The building's steel skeleton stretched above me like the framework of my revenge, and for the first time in months, I felt like I was exactly where I needed to be. I sat at my kitchen table at 6 in the morning, surrounded by papers that told the story of my own financial execution. Bank statements, property documents, credit card bills I'd never seen before, all spread across the oak surface like evidence at a crime scene. The refinancing papers sat dead center, Heather's forgery of my signature staring back at me in black ink. My coffee had gone cold an hour ago, but I couldn't stop calculating. $45,000 stolen from our home equity. The BMW lease. $890 a month I'd never approved. Secret credit cards maxed out on restaurants I'd never been to, hotels I'd never seen. The numbers kept adding up, each one a fresh knife twist. I traced the forged signature with my finger, marveling at how well she'd practiced my handwriting. The loops were perfect, the pressure exactly right. She'd probably spent weeks perfecting it, sitting at this same table while I worked overtime to pay for her betrayal. The house felt different now, contaminated. Every surface we touched together, every room where we'd made love, every corner where Emma had played, all of it evidence of my blindness. The kitchen island where we'd planned Emma's birthday parties, the living room couch where we'd watched movies. Even the coffee maker seemed to mock me with its cheerful gurgling. My phone buzzed. A text from Heather. "Left early for yoga. Love you." Love. The word felt like acid in my mouth. Dennis found me in the Meridian Tower elevator shaft at lunch, staring blankly at my socket wrench set. The tools lay scattered in their case like I'd forgotten how to use them. "You look like hell, brother." His voice echoed in the concrete shaft. "When's the last time you slept?" I pulled out my phone and showed him the refinancing documents. Dennis whistled low, his breath visible in the cold air. "She forged your signature? That's not just cheating, Joe. That's fraud." He leaned against the guide rails, studying the screen. "How much?" $45,000 from the house, plus credit cards, the car lease, God knows what else. The elevator cables creaked overhead, their tension perfectly calculated, unlike my marriage. "She's been robbing me blind for over a year." Jesus Christ. Dennis pulled off his hard hat, running fingers through his graying hair. "This is bigger than an affair. This is criminal." The mechanical hum of the building systems surrounded us. Pumps, fans, electrical relays all working in perfect harmony. Everything in this tower functioned exactly as designed. Everything except my life. "What are you gonna do?" I picked up my wrench, feeling its familiar weight. "I'm gonna fix it, like everything else that's broken." That evening, Heather cornered me as I entered through the garage. Her face was flushed, eyes red-rimmed like she'd been crying. "Where have you been every night? You come home after midnight. You barely speak to me." Her voice cracked with what sounded like genuine hurt. "I feel like I'm losing you." I studied her face, searching for the woman I'd married 15 years ago. The one who'd cried when I proposed, who'd held my hand during Emma's birth, who'd promised to love me through everything. "Working late," I said simply. "The buildings don't fix themselves." She stepped closer, and that familiar scent hit me again. Marcus's cologne, the same expensive shit that had been haunting our bedroom for months. My stomach clenched. Joe, talk to me. Please. She reached for my arm, her manicured nails catching the garage light. I miss us. I miss you. The irony burned my throat like bile. She missed me while she was planning a future with another man, while she was stealing our daughter's college fund, while she was forging my name on documents that could destroy everything I'd built. I'm tired, Heather. Just tired. She nodded, tears starting to fall. Real tears or another performance? I couldn't tell anymore. I know things have been hard, but we can fix this, can't we? We always do. I looked at her, really looked. The expensive highlights in her hair, the designer workout clothes, the jewelry I'd never bought her, all paid for with money stolen from our future. Yeah, I said quietly. We can fix this. I retreated to my workshop in the basement, where the familiar smell of motor oil and metal shavings usually brought me peace. Tonight, it felt like a tomb. I pulled an old elevator motor from the shelf and began disassembling it, needing the meditation of mechanical work. Dad? Emma appeared at the bottom of the stairs, her 12-year-old frame small in oversized pajamas. She perched on my workbench, legs swinging, watching me work with those serious brown eyes she'd inherited from me. Why don't you and Mom talk anymore? My hand stilled on the motor housing. How do you explain betrayal to a child? How do you tell your daughter that her mother is a liar and a thief? Sometimes grown-ups have complicated problems, sweetheart. Emma nodded solemnly, picking up a small wrench and turning it over in her hands. Are you getting divorced like Tommy's parents? The question hit harder than any evidence I'd found. I set down my tools and pulled her close, breathing in her innocence, shampoo and childhood, and trust that hadn't been broken yet. I don't know yet, Em. I honestly don't know. She hugged me tighter. I don't want you to leave. I'm not going anywhere, baby. No matter what happens, I'm not leaving you. The promise felt like an anchor in my chest. Whatever Heather had done, whatever came next, Emma was my priority. She was the one thing in this mess that was still pure. At 2 a.m, I sat in my truck outside the Riverside Commons construction site, my whole body shaking. The refinancing documents lay scattered across the passenger seat like the remains of my marriage. $45,000, 15 years of trust obliterated with a forged signature. My hands wouldn't stop trembling as I dialed Patricia Kowalski's emergency line. She'd given me the number weeks ago, said to call any time. I'd never thought I'd need it at 2 a.m. Kowalski. Patricia, it's Joe Brennan. I'm sorry to call so late, but I found something. What did you find, Joe? She stole from me. My voice cracked like a teenager's. $45,000. Forged my signature on refinancing papers. Silence on the other end. Then, that's bank fraud, Joe. Federal crime, are you sure? I'm looking at the documents right now. It's not even a good forgery. She dotted her eyes the same way she always does. Where are you right now? Sitting in my truck, trying not to lose my shit completely. Joe, listen to me. Don't confront her yet. Don't let on that you know about the money. We need to document everything first. Build a case. Can you do that? The construction site's security lights blurred through my tears. For the first time since discovering the affair, Joe Brennan, methodical, controlled Joe Brennan, began to sob. 15 years of marriage, of trust, of building something together. All of it gone. Joe, are you there? Yeah, I managed. Yeah, I can do that. Good. Come to my office first thing Monday morning. Bring everything you found. We're going to make sure she pays for this. I hung up and sat in the darkness, surrounded by the skeleton of someone else's dream being built. Tomorrow, I'd start building my own revenge. The phone call with Patricia ended, but sleep wouldn't come. I drove through empty streets until I at Mel's 24-hour diner on Industrial Boulevard. The neon sign buzzed and flickered, casting sickly pink light across the cracked parking lot. Patricia's Honda was already there when I pulled up. She sat in a corner booth, laptop open, steam rising from 2 coffee cups. Even at 3 a.m., she looked sharp, hair pulled back, reading glasses perched on her nose, legal pad covered in notes. This was her element. "Forgery is a felony in California," she said without looking up as I slid into the booth. "But proving intent will be complicated since you're married." I spread the refinancing documents across the sticky table between us. Bank statements, credit card bills for hotels I'd never seen. The evidence of my destroyed life under fluorescent lights that made everything look corpse pale. Patricia's fingers tapped the table as she reviewed each page. "The signature analysis will be straightforward. Anyone can see it's not your handwriting. But the defense will argue she had implied authority to handle financial matters." Implied authority? My voice came out rougher than I intended. To steal $45,000? To manage household finances. You're married, joint accounts. She's handled bills before. Patricia flipped through the bank statements. "When did you first notice the missing money?" 2 days ago. I was looking at our savings, planning to... I caught myself. Planning to what? Surprise her for our anniversary? Buy something nice? The irony tasted like bile. "I was just checking the balance. We could pursue criminal charges, but it might complicate the divorce proceedings." She pulled off her glasses, rubbing her eyes. "Criminal court moves slow. Family court can move faster, especially with this kind of evidence." The diner's coffee tasted like burnt rubber, but I needed something to do with my hands. "What are you thinking?" "Civil route first. File for divorce, demand full financial disclosure, freeze assets. Then we decide about criminal charges." Her pen scratched across the legal pad. "How much does she know about your investigation?" "Nothing. I've been careful." "Good. Keep it that way." Patricia closed the laptop. "Don't confront her yet. Don't let on that you know about the money. We need to document everything first. Build an airtight case." I stared at the papers spread between us. 15 years of marriage reduced to evidence in a potential felony case. "How long have you been doing this kind of work?" 15 years. Seen it all." She gathered the documents into neat piles. "The betrayal always hurts the same, but the financial crimes, those cut deeper. It's one thing to break your heart. It's another to steal your future." The next morning, Heather tried to initiate intimacy, sliding into bed beside me before my alarm went off. Her touch felt like a violation now. "I miss us," she whispered, her hand on my chest. Every nerve in my body screamed. I knew where those hands had been, what they'd signed, who they'd touched. The forged signature flashed behind my eyelids, her distinctive way of dotting eyes, the same flourish she'd used to steal from me. "I have to get to work," I said, rolling away. "Joe, please. We used to be so close. Now you barely look at me." In the bathroom mirror, I barely recognized myself. Hollow-eyed, gaunt, aged a decade in weeks. Heather's reflection appeared behind me, confusion and hurt etched across her features. "Is there someone else?" she asked. The question was so absurd I almost laughed. "No, Heather, there's no one else." "Then what's wrong?" "You're distant. You work late every night. You won't talk to me." I turned to face her, studying this woman I'd shared a bed with for 15 years. She looked genuinely confused, genuinely hurt. The performance was flawless. "I'm just tired," I said. "Work's been demanding." She reached for me and I stepped back instinctively. The hurt in her eyes might have been real, but everything else was a lie. At the Meridian Tower, I serviced Marcus Valdez's elevator with methodical precision, knowing the man was 20 floors above, probably texting my wife. Each tool movement was deliberate, controlled fury channeled into mechanical perfection. I adjusted the counterweight system, calibrated the safety mechanisms, ensured every component operated flawlessly. The elevator car hummed with quiet efficiency, a testament to 15 years of expertise that Marcus Valdez would never understand or appreciate. If he wanted to use this elevator, it would be the smoothest, safest ride of his life. My professional pride wouldn't allow sabotage, but the irony of maintaining the infrastructure of my betrayer wasn't lost on me. "How's it looking, Joe?" Frank, the building manager, appeared beside the open shaft. "Perfect operation," I said, tightening the last bolt. "This car will run smooth for another decade." "Good to hear. Mr. Valdez specifically requested you handle his floor's maintenance. Says you're the best mechanic in the city." The compliment from my wife's lover hit like a physical blow. "Just doing my job." "Well, keep it up. Guy like that, he's got connections. Good word from him could mean more contracts." I packed my tools, each one finding its designated spot in the kit. Order, precision, control, everything Heather and Marcus lacked. "I'll make sure everything stays perfect," I told Frank. Dennis found me at the construction site after midnight, standing in the skeletal frame of what would become Riverside Commons. The exposed steel beams reached toward the stars like the ribs of some massive beast. "This is where you've been disappearing to?" He climbed through the framework, his footsteps echoing in the empty space. I nodded, gesturing at the half-built structure around us. "It's quiet here. I can think." Dennis surveyed the construction site. Concrete foundations, steel beams, the promise of something substantial being built from nothing. "You're planning something, aren't you?" My breath misted in the cold air. The city sprawled below us, millions of lights in windows where people slept peacefully, trusting their spouses, believing in their marriages. "She thinks I'm stupid," I said. "Just a mechanic who fixes things." Dennis waited, understanding that silence sometimes draws out more truth than questions. "But I fix things by taking them apart first," I continued, turning to face him. "Strip them down to components, understand how they work, identify the failure points. And then I decide what's worth saving and what needs to be replaced." Dennis studied my face in the dim light from the street lamps below. "Joe, whatever you're planning, just remember Emma needs her father. Emma's the only thing I'm sure about anymore." I picked up a piece of rebar, feeling its weight, its cold solidity. "Everything else can burn." The confrontation came sooner than I expected. Heather discovered my laptop open to property law websites and bank account records. I'd gotten careless, or maybe part of me wanted her to find out. She stormed into the kitchen, her face flushed with anger and fear. "You're investigating me? Your own wife?" I closed the laptop calmly, my hands steady despite the adrenaline coursing through my veins. "I'm protecting myself." "From what?" She slammed her hand on the counter, making the coffee mug jump. "I've never done anything to hurt you." The lie hung between us like a toxic cloud. I'd heard her practice this denial, probably in front of Marcus, perfecting the injured innocence. But I'd seen the bank records, the forged signature, the hotels charged to credit cards I'd never used. "Haven't you?" I asked quietly. Her eyes darted to the laptop, calculating what I might have found. "You're being paranoid. This is marriage, Joe, not a business transaction. We don't investigate each other." "Maybe we should have." "What's that supposed to mean?" I stood up, moving to the coffee maker, needing distance from her performance. "It means I'm tired of being taken for granted, tired of working 60-hour weeks while you... What exactly do you do all day, Heather?" "I take care of our home, our family. I'm here for Emma when she gets home from school." "Are you?" I poured coffee I didn't want, just to keep my hands busy. "Because Emma's been asking why you're never around anymore." The accusation hit its mark. Heather's composure cracked slightly, revealing the guilt underneath. I've been Busy. There's a lot to manage. I'm sure there is. We stood in our kitchen, the kitchen I'd renovated myself, installing every cabinet, laying every tile, and I memorized this moment. The last time she'd lie to me with confidence, the last time I'd pretend to believe her. My phone buzzed. Text from Dennis. Tommy wants to see you. Says Rita found something important. I have to go, I said, pocketing the phone. Joe, we need to talk about this. About us. I looked at her one last time. Really looked. 15 years of marriage, of building something together, of believing in forever. All of it reduced to evidence in a legal case. We will, I said. Soon. The promise felt like a threat, and from the way her face paled, she heard it that way too. The morning light cut through my kitchen blinds like a blade as Patricia Kowalski spread the legal documents across my table. Her finger traced the text of California Civil Code section 1946.2, each word deliberate. Tenant abandonment, she said, her voice carrying the authority of 20 years practicing property law. Applies when someone uses property without legal right, while the rightful owner is excluded from access or benefit. I leaned forward, studying the papers. The legal language was dense, but Patricia had highlighted the key passages in yellow. My coffee grew cold as I read. Here's what matters, Joe. She tapped a specific paragraph. When your wife forged your signature on those refinancing documents, she created a legal vulnerability. Marcus has been occupying property, your boat, accessing your home equity through fraudulent means. The pieces clicked together in my mind like elevator components falling into alignment. So he's not just having an affair with my wife, he's illegally benefiting from marital property obtained through forgery. Patricia's smile was sharp. The law doesn't care about his feelings. It cares about fraud. I picked up the forged refinancing papers Dennis had helped me discover. Heather's signature looked nothing like her real one. Too careful, too practiced. Like someone had traced it. What's my move here? I asked. Patricia pulled out another document. Property abandonment notice. 72 hours to vacate. But here's the beautiful part. Since the boat was purchased with fraudulently obtained funds, you can reclaim it immediately. No waiting period. The morning light shifted, casting shadows across the legal papers. For the first time in months, I felt something other than rage. Control. Purpose. The kind of satisfaction I got when a complex elevator repair finally clicked into place. When do we do this? Today's Sunday. They'll be at the marina. Patricia gathered the documents. Slip 47, right? Your wife's been predictable about her schedule. I nodded. Heather always took Marcus to the boat Sunday mornings when she thought I was working overtime. 14 months of the same routine. She never imagined I'd been tracking her movements through our shared phone plan's location data. Patricia, I stood, tucking the legal papers inside my work jacket. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. This gets ugly before it gets clean. The weather dock creaked under my boots as I walked toward slip 47. December morning mist hung over Bayshore Harbor like smoke, muffling the sound of rigging clanking in the breeze. The 2019 Sea Ray Sundancer rocked gently in its berth, white hull gleaming through the gray air. I'd calculated this moment for weeks. Sunday, 9:30 a.m. Heather's pattern never varied. She'd drive Marcus here in her BMW, park in the visitor spot, spend 3 hours on the boat I'd worked 60-hour weeks to afford. The sound of laughter carried across the water as I approached. Her laugh, the one she used to save for me. Now it felt like fingernails on metal. My hands were steady now. No more shaking with rage, no more sleepless nights staring at the ceiling. Just focused purpose, like threading a cable through a narrow shaft. I had the tools. I had the plan. Time to execute. The marina smelled of salt and diesel fuel, familiar scents that usually calmed me. Today, they sharpened my focus. I stepped onto the boat's swim platform, my work boots finding purchase on the non-slip surface. The cabin door was open. I could see movement inside, hear Marcus's voice saying something about our future plans. The irony wasn't lost on me. I climbed aboard. "Get off my boat!" Heather emerged from the cabin first, her face shifting from confusion to horror as she recognized me. Marcus appeared behind her, shirtless, holding a coffee mug that said, "World's Best Dad," the one Emma had given me last Father's Day. "Joe," Heather's voice cracked, "we can talk about this. 14 months. I pulled out the ownership documents and Patricia's legal brief. 14 months of you bringing him here, to our boat.
Bought with our money."
Marcus set down the mug and stepped forward, trying to assert some kind of authority. His chest was soft, pale, the kind of body that came from desk work and gym memberships he never used. "You can't just—" I cut him off with documentation, bank records, the forged refinancing papers, timestamps from my elevator service logs that matched Heather's location data to the minute. "Actually, I can." My voice stayed level, professional, like explaining safety protocols to a new apprentice. Property abandonment through fraudulent occupancy. California Civil Code Section 1946.2. Marcus's confidence crumbled as he read the papers. His hands shook, soft hands that had never held a wrench or felt the bite of metal shavings. Heather clutched the cabin door frame, her knuckles white. "This is our boat too," she whispered. "No, it's my boat. Purchased with my labor, refinanced with my forged signature." I handed her the eviction notice for our house. 72 hours to vacate the premises. The boat rocked slightly in the wake of a passing vessel. Marcus stared at his own copy of the legal papers, his face gray as the morning mist. "Joe, please." Heather's tears started flowing. 15 years of marriage. Emma needs stability. We can work this out. You should have thought of that before forging my signature. The words came out flat, mechanical. No emotion left to waste. Before bringing him into our home, before stealing our equity to finance your affair. Marcus found his voice again, but it came out weak. The development project, the financing, is compromised. Patricia's already filed the fraud reports with your lenders. I folded the papers, tucking them back into my jacket. Amazing how banks react when they discover their collateral was obtained through forgery. The morning sun broke through the mist, illuminating the wreckage of their deception. Heather's makeup ran in dark streams down her cheeks. Marcus stood there in his expensive swim trunks, looking like what he was, a man who'd built his life on other people's work. I felt no satisfaction, no triumph, just the quiet completion of a job done correctly, according to specifications, within tolerance. The same feeling I got when an elevator passed its safety inspection. 72 hours, I repeated, stepping back onto the dock. The boat rocked gently behind me as I walked away, my footsteps echoing off the weathered planks. In the distance, I could hear Heather crying and Marcus trying to calm her with empty promises. The mist was lifting. Going to be a clear day. I turned to find Dennis waiting at the end of the dock, hands shoved deep in his jacket pockets. His weathered face showed the same expression he wore when we'd lost a union brother to a job site accident, grim understanding mixed with quiet support. "Truck's running," he said simply, but I wasn't ready to leave yet. Marcus stepped forward, his designer polo wrinkled from the confrontation. "The courts will see this as vindictive," he said, trying to summon authority from somewhere. "A man using legal technicalities to destroy lives." I shook my head slowly. "The courts will see forged documents and adultery. Patricia's already filed the fraud reports." I pulled out my keys, the boat keys separate from the house keys I'd never need again. Amazing how judges feel about stolen equity. The diesel engine rumbled to life beneath my feet, a sound I'd heard 1,000 times but never appreciated until now. 30 years of honest labor had earned me this moment, the right to walk away from people who'd stolen from me. Heather stepped closer to the dock's edge, her voice breaking. "Joe, where will we go? The lease on the BMW, the credit cards." I didn't answer. The joint savings account would be frozen pending divorce proceedings. Her car payments would default within 30 days. Marcus's development company faced federal fraud investigation. Patricia had been thorough. The dominoes were already falling. "Please," Marcus called out as I untied the stern line. "We can work something out. Business to business." "I don't do business with thieves." The bow line came free with a practiced flip. 15 years of weekend boating had taught me these movements until they were muscle memory. "Good luck explaining the forged signatures to your investors." The Sea Ray pulled away from Slip 47, leaving them stranded on the weathered dock. Heather's sobs carried across the water, mixing with the cry of seagulls and the distant hum of traffic. Marcus put his arm around her shoulders, but even from 50 yards I could see the gesture was hollow. They were drowning, and he was just another weight pulling them down. I throttled up, feeling the boat lift slightly as it found its plane. The marina fell away behind me, taking with it 20 years of shared history that turned out to be mostly lies. Dennis would drive my truck back to the construction site. I'd arranged for him to pick me up at the North Harbor in 3 hours. Alone on the open water, I finally let myself feel the weight of what I'd done. The December sun climbed higher, burning away the morning mist and revealing the bay in sharp detail. For the first time in months, my shoulders relaxed. The constant tension that had lived between my shoulder blades, the feeling of carrying a load beyond my limits, finally eased. My phone buzzed incessantly in my pocket. 17 missed calls from Heather, 6 from Marcus, 2 from numbers I didn't recognize. Probably reporters. Patricia had warned me that fraud cases involving real estate developers sometimes made the local news. I powered the phone off and dropped it into the console. The water lapped against the hull in a steady rhythm, the only sound besides the engine's reliable hum. I'd built my life through honest work, crawling through elevator shafts, troubleshooting mechanical failures, ensuring that tons of steel and cable operated safely every day. The same methodical precision that made me good at my job had dismantled their deception piece by piece. 3 hours later, I docked at Bayview Marina and found the payphone near the harbor master's office. The metal was cold against my ear as I dialed Emma's school. "Emma, it's Dad." "Daddy!" Her voice brightened immediately. "Are you picking me up today?" "Not today, sweetheart, but I need to tell you something important." I leaned against the phone booth, watching a pelican dive for fish in the harbor. "Dad's going to have a different address for a while, but I'm still your dad, okay?" Silence stretched between us. Then, in a smaller voice, "Is it because of Mommy?" "Kids see more than we think. Mommy made some bad choices, Emma. But you'll always have a home with me. That's never going to change." "Will I still go to the same school?" "Yes, and I'll still help with your homework every night, just maybe from a different kitchen table." The phone booth glass reflected my weathered face, older than this morning but somehow clearer. "I love you, kiddo." "I love you too, Daddy." After I hung up, I stood there for a long moment, watching the boats rock gently in their slips. Emma would be okay. Kids were resilient, more so than the adults who thought they were protecting them from truth. Dennis pulled up in my truck just as the afternoon light started to fade. "How'd it go?" he asked as I climbed into the passenger seat. "Clean," I said. "No complications." He nodded and pulled away from the marina. We drove in comfortable silence through the industrial district where I'd spent my career, past the Meridian Tower where this all started, past the construction sites where I'd worked through my darkest nights. "Rita says the house will sell quick," Dennis said finally. "Market's still strong." "Good. Faster we close this chapter, the better. By evening, I sat in a modest motel room near the harbor, reviewing Patricia's timeline on my laptop. The house would go on the market within a week. After paying off the legitimate mortgage and legal fees, I'd clear enough for a down payment on something smaller. The boat was mine, free and clear, 45 feet of fiberglass and honest workmanship that no one could take away. Heather and Marcus faced bankruptcy, fraud charges, and each other's blame. The news felt distant now, like weather reports from another country. Marcus's development company would fold within 60 days, once the banks discovered the extent of the forged documentation. Heather would lose the BMW, the credit cards, the lifestyle she'd thought she deserved. I opened a new browser tab and started searching apartment listings near Emma's school. 2 bedrooms, decent neighborhood, walking distance to the elementary school where she'd finish 6th grade. The rent was manageable on my union salary, and landlords liked tenants with steady employment. Rebuilding would begin tomorrow. I'd done it before, worked my way up from apprentice to journeyman to master mechanic. The same skills that had built my first life would build my second. The difference was, this time I'd build it alone, without someone secretly tearing down the foundation while I worked. I closed the laptop and walked to the window. The harbor lights twinkled in the darkness, and somewhere out there, the Sea Ray sat in its new slip, waiting for weekend trips with Emma. She'd love learning to handle the lines, maybe even take the wheel in calm water. The elevator mechanic who'd spent 20 years keeping other people safe had finally learned to protect himself. It wasn't the ending I'd planned, but it was the one I'd earned